So, Makinde Adedapo, teacher here in Chicago at right now Perspectives Charter High School of Technology. I teach an entrepreneurship business course. Over the 4 years I've been there, though, I've taught social emotional learning primarily.
Okay, so just curious, as just an African American male, what made you want to teach in particular?
The reality is I didn't actually choose education, it kind of chose me. I was looking for full-time work out of college. I've been doing a lot of part-time work, doing classes, and bumped into an individual who I knew, and they introduced me to actually a not-for-profit organization in Wisconsin. So I went. I've always worked with young people. I always had everybody in my family is a teacher. My mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandma. I mean, literally everybody is a teacher. So I've got it in the blood, and you kind of being around it your whole life. But it wasn't something I chose per se. It kind of chose me just by the nature of having an opportunity to full-time gig. When I got it, though, it becomes very apparent within a very early time frame that there are very few of them, very few black males in the classroom. And so once you kind of recognize that, you kind of put on a cloak of responsibility in that way. You kind of know that if you walk out, you probably won't be replaced with another black male. If you don't stay and put in some time, then you're probably not going to see that percentage of males in the classroom. So, I mean, I say that's what made me stick, is that I really started to see that we know that. I mean, that's not something new, right? That what we struggle with in our community right now is this concept of lack of male role models, lack of male mentorship, particularly from the black male side. So, when you know those things, it's kind of like you can't, you can't ignore what you know. And so, having those things in front of you, having these students in front of you, you got to hold that responsibility. I think the other piece too, though, is that when kids actually respond to you, when you see their responses, I think that also kind of changes the game. Because initially, you're just there to teach, you're there to do your thing, here's some work, give it back, I'll grade it. But when students start to really kind of invest in what you do and who you are, and you start to see that kind of transfer of knowledge and transfer of information, it gets a little harder to step away.
Definitely, which kind of segues to my next question. What has been your best moment so far as a teacher?
It's a difficult question. So this is my 7th year. It's really, I think it's hard to have one moment. I think ultimately it's usually a collection, right? I'll say that in my first year at this particular place, no, I'll go back. Actually, I'll go back. So this is my second. So my first year teaching was in Milwaukee, startup school, brand new school. Literally from ground up. We didn't even have a lunch lady, one person serving sandwiches. So after class, we went to go to the cafeteria to serve sandwiches, right? So from that, I had to kind of fill a lot of roles. You had to be your own administrator, you had to be your own office assistant, you had to be a teacher, you had to be, you had to be in charge of literally your whole program.
Okay.
And in that particular place, I taught music education and fine arts and music education. And so the best part of it, so first day, right, they give us like $5,000 to go get our stuff. I go get Pro Tools, I go get some MK2s, I go get some MK1200s, I go get some studio mics, like Serato, the whole nine, right? Keyboards, we found the building that we bought, we found a bunch of the brass section, like the horn section.
Nice.
So, I set up the classroom on the first day so that there was like a radio station over here with the turntables and the mics. Then over here there was keyboards and drumsticks. Over here there was like the horns and all that. And so I sit down and I was like, all right, check it out. We count to 3. I had about 25 students. So I'm gonna count to 3. And when I get to 3, I just want you to stand up and go to whatever area you want. Right? So I'm on charge because I'm knowing this is gonna be real. So I count to 3. Now one student moved. Literally. Now, one student kind of went to move, and then when they peeped game and saw that nobody else moved, everybody was just kind of like, what? So I didn't know what to go from there. That was my whole lesson plan for the day. My expectation was that they were going to be super excited, that they was going to run over to record and do all of that, and that we would build from there.
Right.
So, I was kind of frustrated. I go back and you go through that experience, and then you realize, okay, I have to retool what I'm doing. So to start there, by the end of that first year, we were doing a live radio show that was fully produced by the students, fully hosted by the students, edited by the students. In a mall on Saturdays, we had a Saturday school program, and the students ran that entire show. all I had to really do was kind of manage some of the technical difficulties. We had a drum line, we had a step team, we had students were literally could play scales in both hands, right? So I think the reason I say it can't be one moment is because you know that was a collection of moments that led to that.
Right.
So I think that's the idea. With like when you're proud of it, you're proud of the progress you see from start to finish.
Gotcha.
I'd say that's maybe one of the.
So to kind of inverse that is, what would be your most difficult moment or moments in inverse of that?
This year was without question the most difficult. I started, so the class that I have now, they were seniors, and I started with them as freshmen, and then I followed them as sophomores. And in those first 2 years, I really did have a little bit more freedom to create the curriculum that I wanted to. It was really focused on character building and social emotional kind of principles. And I was able to craft, I think, some, reasonably tangible things in terms of projects with related content, from the curriculum as a school provider. So the relationships I built with these kids were really strong. I was, coming back their senior year, knowing this is going to be our third year together, I expected this to be like, a bump.
Yeah.
And then when I found out, particularly what curriculum I'm doing, this business education curriculum, where they're going to be writing your own business plan, you're going to be doing your own, studying marketing, studying the financials of how to be successful, right? I expected this to literally be a ton of fun. And what I was met with very early and really dragged on throughout the first semester, man, is a serious lack of work ethic. And I don't think, and it's like an apathetic approach to your own success. A common thing you hear from kids in classes, and I think rightfully so sometimes, is how am I going to use this in life? Right? Why is this important to me? What am I going to need this? And so I felt like that question was already answered. This is your business. This is whatever you want to do. This is, I'm not deciding anything here. All I'm doing is giving you the framework from which to build it out. By the end of this year, as a senior, you can walk into college with a written business plan, right? So I felt like I wasn't gonna have to struggle through that, but I did. Like the question still remained, like, well, why do I need to learn entrepreneurship? Why do I need to learn marketing? Why do I need to learn it? So it was difficult for me to really adjust because I didn't have an answer to that. Like I felt it was embedded within life, right? So I mean, that was really difficult, man. Like to go into class and to see students really, really, really like look at material. And instead of kind of respond with a, let me see how I can use this, let me see how this is useful, let me see what I can do with it. Instead of them responding in that way, they kind of collectively fed off of each other initially and were like, you don't want to do it, I don't want to do either. And that built, that the discontent built. I had one class, man, that literally, like, I didn't know what to do. I literally just didn't know what to do at any point. I mean, I knew every last one of these kids very personally. I knew their parents, I knew their backgrounds. It wasn't a relationship thing. It was just a purely lost, how do you encourage a person that to come in every day and to build something that is totally catered to you, by you, for you, in whatever capacity. How do you encourage an individual to actually take it down?
Right.
It was a challenge, man. That was definitely, without question, the hardest thing I think I've had so far.
Wow, I can only imagine after doing that. And then that kind of goes to the final point. What do you want your lasting impact to be as a teacher? And that's something to really think about because we all start off wanting to be, the Joe Clarks and all that. But now that you've been in these trenches, what do you want to be kind of your parting legacy for any male, female, or just group of students you've had to teach?
Male, female is not particular. I do tend to really, really, really hone in on the young males just because I understand how much is riding on them in a lot of ways. But I think the overall legacy, man, is that you have to understand time is super precious. And so in any event that you are not using time to kind of develop something for yourself and your family and your community. These are missed opportunities, and I think the within that same idea of time is that your brain is probably the most valuable tool on the planet because what you feed it is what it can output. Right? You can arm your brain to do things that used to be thought of as impossible or difficult. But as long as you are using your time to feed your brain things that are going to be useful, that are going to be productive or help you be productive, I think that's the key. And so I think we're encouraged to live this very leisurely kind of whatever we want to do kind of life, right? Like I'm going to do me all the time. And there's no, sacrifice is required. So to kind of spin back to the beginning of the question and maybe codify this better, I think that's the phrase. Sacrifice is the price of life. But there's absolutely nothing going to come from without sacrifice, right? And then that idea that the price of life, right, is the life that you want to live, right? There's a quality of life fashion. The philosophy I tend to use and talk about is this concept of think, period, and then decide, right? And it's useful in every aspect. The first thought is identify what's up. I'm sitting in the corner, there's a bus rolling, it's day, it's Tuesday, interviews, okay, that's what's happening. Second thought, what are my options? Right? I can sit here for another couple hours, we can chop it up about education, we can talk about future events, right? There's a young lady walking past, I can go and see what's up with her, right? Like there's a multitude of different things. Once you've identified where your paths are, make that decision, right? Okay, now what am I gonna do, right? And within that decision is what is the outcome? What am I looking for in the outcome? Now, granted, I may make the wrong decision. I may be like, yo, I gotta go jump over here in X, Y, Z, and find out, man, that was a waste of my time. I shouldn't have done that. That's fine, right? Because in reality, what you've established is, I made that decision. I knew what I was doing because I thought about it. It wasn't some off the cuff. It wasn't some just this, that, or the other. So I think to be intentionally intellectual about what you do with your time, that's what I would want to say, is going to be my legacy. At the very least, that people understand that you have to be intentional. And it has to be, you have to be intelligent, and it has to be by design. If you want the glory, if you want people to celebrate and respect what you do, then you have to have done it by design. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Well, there you have it. Thanks again.
No doubt.